Yo, what is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving my early thoughts, early looks at the Week 15 slate on DraftKings. We got an 11-game slate for this week. I am recording this video on Monday. Like I said, this is my early thoughts, my early looks. I'm going to go through each position, talk about the guys that stand out to me. If I was to build a dummy lineup today, a dummy cash game lineup, what would be the guys, or who would be the guys I'd be charting? I do actually recap my cash game lineups every Monday. Those videos are uploaded Monday, usually before this video goes up. So make sure you check out my recap videos if you want to see how my lineups do and how I pick the guys that I decide on. I talk about the players that I chose and why I chose them. So if you do want to check that video out, I would greatly appreciate it. Make sure you drop a like on that video if you do watch it. Drop a like on this video as well, guys. Also would appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. I do upload a ton of NFL content for you guys. Just trying to get out as much content as I can. I upload NBA videos daily, so you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed, so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. But yeah, guys, starting off at quarterback, if we were to build a cash game lineup today, obviously quarterback's a position you usually want to go cheap because running back and receiver are the positions you want to pay up at because there are guys at that position that have such high floors and ceilings. Whereas quarterback's a position, rarely do you get burned at quarterback. Quarterbacks never go off for like 40, 50 points, whereas there are running backs, receivers like Le'Veon Bell, who's on this slate, Antonio Brown. These guys literally can put up 40, 50 DraftKings points, and nobody would really be surprised. So that's why I like to go cheap at quarterback. You can usually find options like 6K and under, guys that can get you like 3X on their salary, which is usually what you want for cash games. And I was looking over the slate earlier before I started recording, and the guy that stands out to me for this week, at least as of now, is Blake Bortles at just 5,700, playing at home against Houston. I feel like Blake Bortles might be the cash game option this week. Obviously, I am recording this video on Monday. Things are going to change as the week goes on. I will make my full picks video on Thursday like I always do. But right now, I feel like Blake Bortles is a guy I'm going to be charting, especially at 5,700. The guy's been getting the job done lately. In his last 3 games, 23, 28, and 18 DraftKings points. And at 5,700 for cash games on this price, you want about 16, 17, 18 DraftKings points. And Bortles has been getting there lately. Going up against Houston, that's a really good matchup. Really bad pass defense. I feel like Bortles is at least going to get 17, 18 DK points and pay off this price tag. I was looking at some of the Jacksonville receivers, and a lot of them I feel like are underpriced. So you can definitely pair Bortles with a guy like Marquise Lee or D.D. Westbrook this week. I feel like that might be a popular combo in cash. So I think Blake Bortles, as of now, is the cheap option. We have Nick Foles here, who looks like he's going to be starting for the rest of the year for the Eagles. Carson Wentz is done for the year. I think I prefer just to go up to Bortles for 200 more, but Nick Foles could be a cheap option at 5,500. I don't think there are any options 5K and under that we want to target. We can go to this mid-tier if like enough value opens up. I know last week we had Gio Bernard as a really cheap value option that did allow you to pay up at a lot of positions. I was able to fit in Case Keenum in cash, and he was like 6,100. So you could go to like Cam Newton, really a guy that really stood out to me at 6,400 if enough value opens up. Maybe even Big Ben in a potential shootout against the Patriots. But as of now, I think the cheap option this week that we're going to want to target is Blake Bortles at 5,700 as a cheap play. And one of the reasons we like to go cheap at quarterback is so we can fit in guys like Le'Veon Bell, who I think is a great play this week. The Steelers are finally on the main slate. They haven't been on the main slate in like 3 or 4 weeks. But Le'Veon Bell, definitely a guy I'm going to be forcing in. Even at 9,300, this guy just has such a high floor. He's so consistent. Barring any injury of some sort, Le'Veon Bell is probably locked in for 15, even 20 DraftKings points. His floor is just so high. You just look at his game log last 4 or 5 games, 16, 19, 29, 32, 39 DraftKings points. He has such a high floor, has a ceiling as well. He's just all-around good play, cash games, tournaments. Always want to consider Le'Veon Bell, especially in a game against the Patriots that should be a shootout. I think Bell, Brown, these guys are going to be really good plays this week. So as of now, Le'Veon Bell is the guy I'm trying to force into my lineups, at least on Monday. He's the guy that really stands out to me. I prefer him over Kamara, probably prefer him over Shady McCoy, even Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram. If I'm paying up at running back this week, just go to the top for Le'Veon Bell. The guy has a higher ceiling than any of these other running backs. He has a higher floor, in my opinion, as well. So paying up at running back for your floor play, it's Le'Veon Bell this week, 9,300. Don't think you really think twice about it. Just try and jam him in. Since we do pay up at running back, obviously we're going to have to go a little bit cheaper for an RB2. We got Rex Burkhead here in like the 6K range. Christian McCaffrey at 6K I think is a really good option. Kenyon Drake as well at 5,800. I feel like McCaffrey or Kenyon Drake, most likely Drake at 5,800, probably going to be a popular option this week. Especially, we'll see how Drake plays Monday night against the Patriots. I am recording this video Monday afternoon before that game starts. Will be interesting to see how Drake plays and to see if the workload is still there on Monday night against the Patriots. Damian Williams is going to be out for that game. If Williams is out again, Drake should continue to see the workload. Really good matchup against Buffalo. Their run defense is not good at all. And Drake's price tag didn't rise that much. He's 5,800. And with his involvement in the passing game, with the workload he should see, I think he pays off this price tag, especially in a good matchup against Buffalo. So Kenyon Drake at 5,800, probably going to be a guy we pair with one of our expensive running backs, preferably Le'Veon Bell. We do have cheap options here like Gio Bernard, who was a very popular play in Week 14. I played him. He was only 3,100. Obviously, DraftKings, they're good at adjusting prices. He's now 5,300 this week. Makes you have to think about it. He's not just a plug-and-play, especially not at 5,300. And especially not in a matchup against the Vikings. The Vikings do have a very good defense. But if Joe Mixon's going to be out again this week, we're going to want to consider Gio Bernard. Even with the price increase, he still put up 19 DraftKings points in their last game against the Bears. Got 11 carries for 62 yards, 6 catches for 68 yards. So he's involved in the passing game. That's what we want on DraftKings. So even at 5,300, even with the price increase, Gio Bernard still paid that off last week. He didn't find the end zone and still put up 19 DraftKings points. So I think he could be an option at 5,300 if Joe Mixon remains out. We could target him even in a tough matchup against Minnesota. Obviously, since these are first looks and we're recording this on Monday, it's going to be hard to find value plays. Those usually open up as the week goes on. So right now at running back, I think this is a position you want to pay for Le'Veon Bell. He's probably one of the guys I'm going to be locking in this week. Go cheap for RB2 like Kenyon Drake, McCaffrey, Gio Bernard. If Joe Mixon remains out, could be a play. Maybe even a guy like Alex Collins at 5K. Collins looked really good Sunday night against the Steelers. Matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland does have a solid run defense, but Collins is heavily involved in the passing game and the run game. Gets a ton of work. Could be an option at 5K. Maybe even Jay Ajayi with Nick Foles starting as a QB. The Eagles are a pass-heavy offense, but they might not let Foles throw as much as Wentz does. Could give the ball to Ajayi some, but obviously Ajayi, his workload has been so inconsistent. Don't know if we want to go there in cash games. So besides Le'Veon Bell, the options like RB2s, I think like Gio Bernard, Kenyon Drake, McCaffrey, these are the options that really stand out to me. So moving on to receiver, this is another position we always want to pay up at. There are guys up top of this position that have really high floors and ceilings, so that makes them great cash game plays. We do have Antonio Brown here up top at 9,100. It's going to be really hard to fit him and Le'Veon Bell in this week, especially if not a lot of value opens up. I'd probably prefer Bell over Brown if I'm just having to choose between one. They're about the same price tag. I think Le'Veon Bell's 200 more. Yeah, Bell's 200 more. Prefer Bell, but Brown, obviously Brown's a great play. We got other options here, though, that are like 2K cheaper. They're definitely good options. DeAndre Hopkins against Jacksonville. Don't know if I want to go there. I talked about Hopkins in my recap video. This guy, he's going to get targets every week, but this is definitely a tough matchup against Jacksonville. They have the best secondary in the NFL. Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Boye, these guys can shut receivers down. These teams did face off earlier this year, Week 1. Hopkins got 7 catches, saw 16 targets, 55 yards, got a touchdown, 18.5 DraftKings points. I don't think the price tag dropped enough to where I really want to consider him. 7,700 against Jacksonville. Don't know if I want to go there. There are options that are a little bit cheaper, especially a guy like Michael Thomas against the Jets. It really stands out to me as a receiver we can pay up for. Michael Thomas, definitely a good cash game play. This guy gets targets every week. He's been so consistent this year. Just looking at his last 4 games, 11, 8, 9, 14 targets, 15, 10, 18, and 30 DraftKings points. Did show somewhat of a ceiling game last week against Atlanta, where he got 10 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. Really nice game from Michael Thomas. Thomas is usually not a guy that's going to go off for like 25, 30. Usually a consistent player. He'll usually get you between 10, 15. But if Thomas manages to find the end zone, usually he'll post a ceiling game like he did against Atlanta. That could definitely come this week going up against the Jets, especially since the Saints are playing at home. We know they play well at home. Definitely like Michael Thomas as an option we can pay for. I think it's going to be really hard to decide between him or Adam Thielen. I'd say Thomas is in a much better matchup, but Thielen's also been really consistent this year. Both of them are in the same price range. Definitely going to be something we wrestle with as the week goes on. But right now, if you're not paying up for Antonio Brown, I think Michael Thomas, really good option at 7,400 that stands out to me. And looking for some mid-tier plays that maybe we can go to as like our wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. AJ Green's really cheap, but tough matchup against Minnesota. Don't know if I want to go there in cash. DraftKings rose Jordy Nelson's price with Aaron Rodgers coming back, so they were definitely sharp on that. Even with Rodgers coming back with the price increase, don't know if I would want to go to Jordy Nelson. I was definitely going to consider him if he was still like 5K, but with the price increase, 6,300, not sure I want to go there. I think a guy like Devin Funchess at 6,600 and a potential shootout against Green Bay could be a really good option in this mid-tier. This is a good matchup against the Packers. They don't have a good secondary, don't have a good pass defense. And Funchess has been consistent lately. 26, 20, 16, 15 DraftKings points in his last 4 games. The targets have been there, especially with Kelvin Benjamin gone. Funchess has seen plenty of targets lately. And he has been able to find the end zone, putting up 4 touchdowns in his last 4 weeks. So I do like Devin Funchess in this mid-tier. I think he could be a wide receiver 2 option, or even your wide receiver 1 if you don't want to pay up for like a guy like Antonio Brown, Michael Thomas. Devin Funchess, 6,600, think he's in play. And if we do try to go a little bit cheaper, Marquise Lee, I talked about the Jacksonville receivers. Marquise Lee seems way too cheap this week at 5,800. The guy, he's just been so solid lately. Obviously, he had a really tough matchup against Patrick Peterson, and he busted there. Tough matchup against Jason McCourty, only put up 9 DraftKings points. But in his last 2 games against the Colts and against Seattle, 10 and 6 targets, 21, 11 DraftKings points. Great matchup this week against Houston. Love Marquise Lee. Pairing him with Blake Bortles, I think that's something we definitely are going to want to do. And that really won't cost you any salary at all. Both of those quarterback receiver, Marquise Lee, Blake Bortles, both of them are pretty cheap. So I do like that quarterback receiver combo, especially in cash games. Early looks at this slate, definitely something I'm going to be considering. And if we are looking for some more mid-tier options, will be interesting to see how much Chris Hogan's targeted in Monday's game against the Dolphins. Hogan is making his return, I believe. If Hogan's going to see like 7, 8, 9 targets in Monday night's game, could be an interesting play at 5,500 in a potential shootout. Obviously, Gronk is going to be able to come back for this game. He's going to be suspended for Monday's game against the Dolphins, but he will be back for this game, so that's going to hurt Hogan. But we saw earlier this year, even with Gronk healthy, with pretty much all the receivers healthy, Hogan was getting a ton of targets. Brady was really leaning on him, so it could be an option at 5,500. Definitely like him in that mid-tier as well. And then maybe looking for value, if we can find value at receiver. Going to be hard to find value plays on Monday because, like I said, value usually opens up. I think a guy like Randall Cobb, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, could be a potential option at just 4,900. Obviously, if Rodgers comes back, that's a big boost for just all the Packers receivers, for Cobb, Adams, Jordy Nelson. All of them have to see a boost with Rodgers coming back. And we saw earlier this year when Rodgers was healthy, Randall Cobb was consistently priced at least in the mid 5K range, even sometimes upward of 6K. So really cheap price on Randall Cobb at 4,900. He didn't see much of an increase with Rodgers possibly making his return, so he could be a value option at 4,900 if we do need to go that cheap. Same with a guy like Paul Richardson, 4,600. Richardson's just been really good lately, been really consistent. Didn't have that good of a game against the Eagles in Week 13 where he only put up 2 DraftKings points. But other than that game, 16 against Jacksonville, 11 against San Francisco, 10 against Atlanta. We know Seattle, they're a pass-heavy offense. They don't run the ball hardly at all. Russell Wilson's going to chuck the ball downfield a ton. So that could lead to some targets for Paul Richardson. Has seen 11, 18, 26 targets in his last 4 games. So I think Paul Richardson definitely a cheap option that we could target in our lineups come Sunday. But yeah, guys, what I'm seeing a receiver. Moving on to tight end. This is another position we usually like to go cheap at, but definitely an option up top here that really catches my eye. If he plays, Zach Ertz at 6K, definitely a guy I think we're going to want to target going up against the Giants. We know the Giants are very bad against tight ends. With Wentz done for the season and Nick Foles as the quarterback, that will obviously hurt Zach Ertz. But at 6K, this guy is way too cheap, especially given the matchup if he plays. So if we can find the salary to fit Zach Ertz in, we've seen just all year how consistent Zach Ertz has been. Obviously, that's with Wentz as quarterback. But Foles is probably still going to get Ertz some targets, and especially in a good matchup against the Giants. I think we might actually want to pay up for tight end this week if we can, if enough value opens up. Zach Ertz, really good option in my opinion at 6K. If Ertz does not wind up playing, then that obviously opens up Trey Burton at 4,200 as a potential cheap option. I don't see a lot of cheap options now that I'm really in love with. Ricky Seals-Jones, I know he's been playing well lately, but I think he kind of busted last week. Yeah, he only got one catch for 20 yards, 3 targets. Really just busting at last 2 games. Hasn't done anything at all. So I doubt we want to go there. I know Jesse James got a ton of targets Sunday night against the Ravens. I think he had a really good game. Yeah, he put up 19.7 draft points, got 12 targets, 10 catches for 97 yards. Maybe go to Jesse James this week as a cheap option in a potential shootout against the Steelers. It could be an option at $2,900 if we do need to go that cheap. But Juju Smith-Schuster was suspended for that game, so that probably was one of the reasons James did see an uptick in targets. But he is only $2,900, only need like 10 DraftKings points for him to hit value. So he could be a cheap option. But right now I don't like a lot of the cheap options this week. Don't really know if I want to go to a lot of the mid-tier options either. I think this is a position you probably want to pay for Zach Ertz. Trey Burton, if Ertz is out, probably going to be the guy we target. Cleveland's bad against tight ends, but I don't think I want to go to Ben Watson. He just hasn't been doing anything all year. He's been so inconsistent. Doubt I want to go there, even at $3,800. Hopefully Ertz plays this week and we can just play him at tight end because I think he's the guy we want to target here. But moving on to defense, won't talk too much about this position. Just looking at options quickly that stand out to me. Obviously the Jaguars up top are a great play. The Saints up top as well. With Josh McCown done for the season, the Saints are going to be going up against Bryce Petty. They're a great option as well to pay up for. But we do like to go a little bit cheaper at defense. I think the Panthers at $2,900, if Aaron Rodgers does not return, could be a really good option at $2,900 going up against Brett Hundley if Rodgers doesn't come back. They are very cheap and they're playing at home. They really stand out to me, especially if Rodgers doesn't come back. Maybe the Redskins at home against Arizona against Blaine Gabbert. Gabbert did get he did take a ton of sacks last week against Tennessee. The Redskins could be a potential cheap option, $2,800 if we want to go to them. I doubt we want to play the 49ers, but Marcus Mariota has looked terrible lately. The 49ers are playing at home. They're only $2,600. They could be a cheap option. If you want to attack Nick Foles, if you think he's a bad quarterback, you could take the Giants defense at $2,500. Yeah, that's what I'm quickly seeing at defense this week, guys. Obviously, in Thursday's video, I'll talk more about each position and go more in depth at each position. But right now, this slate looks like you pay down at quarterback for like Bortles, go to Le'Veon Bell at running back, maybe Kenyon Drake. Receiver, you try and fit in at least one stud receiver here. Maybe a guy like Michael Thomas, then go with like Funches or Dede Westbrook, one of the value receivers like the 5K receivers, maybe like Marquise Lee. Even Alshon Jeffrey could be a wide receiver 3. Tight end, think you want to pay up here for Zach Ertz if he plays. If he doesn't play, that obviously open up Trey Burton. You could go to Ben Watson, but I don't think I'm going to go there this week. Probably just want to go to Ertz here. And then defense, obviously defense. You usually like to go cheap here. I think the Panthers, Redskins could be options. Panthers especially if Hundley plays. If Hundley plays, might actually play the Panthers in cash this week at $2,900. But yeah, guys, those are my first early looks at this slate. Like I said, I'll talk more in depth about each position in my video on Thursday. Make sure you check that video out. If you want to see how my lineup did for Week 14, make sure you check out my recap video. At the end of this video, there should be an annotation that says like previous video. If you just click that, it should show my Week 14 recap video unless you're watching this on like a day later, then it might show my NBA video. But either way, make sure you check out my recap video for Week 14 if you want to see how my cash game lineup did and how I chose the players that I chose. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Good luck this week, guys. Peace.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, she shaking fast. Yeah, she dropping slow. Huh? What? Yeah, neck on fro. Whoa, 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 whoa.